guitarist does not blame his gear. All right, it's me and Ace here today, having a little talk with you. And what do I mean by a warrior does not blame his weapon? A guitarist does not blame his gear. Well, of course, we all, blame our gear, or we're on this gear acquisition syndrome quest. Or, if a warrior, if a boxer loses a fight, it often they are blaming, who was it recently? A few years ago, it was the guy who fought Tyson Fury. And he blamed the outfit that he walked out to the ring in. Said it was too heavy and it made his legs tired, and that's why he lost the fight. So look, blame, the blame game of blaming your instrument, or blaming your gear. I think we're all guilty of that at some point. I think that is a very real thing. But look, man, this is an important philosophical point, because as you get older, as you become comfortable with your sound, as you realize what you're good at and what you're not good at, the reality is this, man. Your gear is not going to make that much difference. Your gear is only, it's a means to an end, right? And how many times have many of us, blamed our gear? Or perhaps you show up at a gig, and maybe it's a gig where there's backline. There are different types of gigs. If you're doing a gig, what we call a fly date is when you fly to the gig, and the company, company putting on the show, the promoter provides the backline. Providing backline means they provide a guitar amplifier. Sometimes they provide an instrument. Sometimes they may provide a pedal, if that is in your backline request. But, here's another thing. If you're going to do fly dates, or if you're going to use backline, and they say, oh, let me know what you want. And you say, oh, I want a Dumble Overdrive Supreme, and I need a backup guitar. So I need a Murphy Lab, LP, 59 Murphy Lab, and all this. Look, you're not going to get it. You're going to just cross it out. It's just like sometimes with a rider. They might say, hey, we can't get, and a rider is something where you basically tell them what you need when you get to the venue. Okay, we're going to need several cases of water. We need a case of beer. We need a deli tray, basic things. And look, I'm going to do a whole episode on riders to get into some of the details, get into some of the crazy riders that are out there and the crazy requests that artists make. But when you're picking backline, you need to realize, hey, pick things that are easily acquired. Common amps, Fender Twin Reverb, maybe EVH amps. If you're a high gain band that needs high gain, EVH stuff seems to be everywhere now. And pick things that you think are going to be reliable, because that is also important. And look, we've all done gigs where basically we had, show up and, maybe the back line is screwed up. And here's another tip, and I've said this before on my channel, but whatever amp you ask for two. And plan on going stereo live, because of this. If one of your amp goes down in your allotted time that you're performing, if one of your amp goes down, you can just turn it off and continue the show with the single amp. And because look, man, shows are run on a tight schedule. There's no time for, hey, let's take a break and fix my amp. There is none of that. Your time is to play between this time and that time. You play your show and you get off the stage. So we've all had circumstances where our gear has failed us, right? I'm sure many warriors in the samurai days might have a time where the blade fails them. Maybe their knife breaks. Maybe something happens and the blade becomes dull. Any number of things. And look, we've all had instances where our favorite guitar fails us. Maybe there's a wiring issue, or maybe there's a fret that needs a few frets that need filing, and it's a reality. It is a reality that gear can fail us, that oftentimes we will blame it. But instead of blaming the gear, perhaps you need to blame yourself for the preparation. Now, I don't know if I've talked about this on the channel. I have talked about it in interviews where David Lee Roth had talked about preparing for a tour. And in his final preparation, the night before the big show, he would get down on his hands and knees and he would scrub the stage floor. That way he knew he had done everything possible to be prepared for the show. So let me ask you, before you go on tour, before you go play that big gig, have you scrubbed the floor? And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that, have you done everything you possibly can to be prepared for a gig? Did you put new strings on your guitars? Did you polish your guitars? Look, it's a very simple thing, right? Polishing a guitar. But imagine, showing up for the gig and your fretboard is oiled down. Your guitar is polished. You've checked the electronics inside. You know what? How long has it been since you opened up that back cavity on that 70s Les Paul? How long has it been since you took a look back there and see what's going on? Make sure all the solder joints are solid. All of these things, the more prepared you can be, the less, chance that you're going to have an equipment failure issue. And we're talking preparation here. And this is so important, man. If you're somebody that doesn't change your strings a lot, that could be a potential situation where, essentially you could break a string. Breaking a string during a 45-minute set, that pretty much, that can kind of kill your vibe, right? And there are people that can quick change on stage and do it mid-performance and all that. But man, as you get older, for me, I need to do all of this prep work at home. I don't know if I could see on a dark stage, pulling that string through and getting it wound up and doing all that while there's an audience in front of me. And I don't want to be doing that. So I am going to make sure that my strings are good. Think about, if you're using tube amps, think about how long it's been before you've changed tubes. They say, on a good set of tubes, 3,000 hours. So ask yourself, how many hours? This is something you're going to have to estimate, because if you're using your tube amps at home, if you're using them on gigs, if it's been a couple of years since you've changed the tubes, man, a tube can go out like that. It's like that light bulb you have in your house and it's been up there for a long time. And then all of a sudden it decides, I'm done. I had that happen last night. We flicked on the light switch, to get our child ready for a shower, and boom, the light's flickering and all that. Okay, that light bulb is toast. Pull it out. Didn't give us any warning. It didn't say, hey, I'm getting tired, bro. It just decided it was done. And that can be something that can really mess up your performance. So another thing in being prepared, always have a backup. What are you going to do if your tube amp dies? Now look, you can bring a separate head that you could use, but make sure that your combo amp has a speaker jack that you can pull out and then plug into the back of the head. You might want to go ahead and extend that cable so that you could stick a head, have it already sitting on top of your tube amp, potentially. And then if the tube amp goes out, you just reach back, turn off your first amp, reach back, plug the speaker cable into the head, flick on the head, and within seconds, you're back up and running. And practice this procedure. Practice the procedure of what happens if. Being prepared is going to make you a far better warrior and a far better guitar player. And you know what? Blaming our gear can't repair itself. Gear can't prepare itself for a gig. Only you can prepare yourself for a gig. Do you think a warrior only brings one weapon? No. A warrior brings multiple weapons. A warrior knows that eventually there is going to be equipment failure. And what do? They have a knife. They have something else. They have different things that they can use. And, essentially, what are we as musicians? We are weekend warriors, many of us. I know for my last, time period in Nashville, I wasn't able to work, didn't want to work down on Broadway and stuff. So essentially for me, it was all weekend warrior work. And those are the gigs where you really gotta be prepared because one, they're guaranteed more money. Playing down on Broadway these days, I think a lot of guys are going down there and, they may have their guitar and they may have a little modeling device or something and that's all they use. But, playing these gigs where you need to bring an amp, you need to bring your pedal board, you might need a Craft Geek music stand, you may need an iPad holder, you may need an iPhone holder, all kinds of different things. These are all things that you need to be prepared. What happens if you're reading charts? And something happens to your music stand? What happens if your, iPhone holder or whatever breaks? Do you have a backup for that? Because look, Ace, Ace likes it when you're prepared. If I wake up in the morning and I don't have his little busy bone that he likes to have every morning, then he's not going to be happy. So you've got to be prepared for any situation that comes up. And there's no need to blame your gear when a problem arises because the reality is all you're really doing is blaming yourself.